The 1960s were a different time. Rules were looser, supervision was rare, and kids had a lot more freedom. That freedom came with risks, many we didn't even recognize. We climbed trees, played in the streets, and rode in cars without seatbelts. It wasn't that people didn't care, it's just the world wasn't as focused on safety. So let's take a look back at some of the dangers kids totally ignored in the 1960s. Number 1, no safety. In the 1960s, safety wasn't something most people talked about, especially when it came to kids. Seatbelts were optional, and many cars didn't even have them in the back. Children rode standing up, sitting on laps, or lying across the rear window ledge with the sun beating down. Playgrounds were built on concrete with tall metal slides that burned your legs and jungle gyms with no soft landing. We rode bikes without brakes, darted between traffic and built ramps from scrap wood. Drinking from garden hoses, running barefoot on gravel, exploring old sheds, all part of the day. Helmets, knee pads, and warning labels were nowhere in sight. Looking back, it was dangerous, no question about it. But back then, it just felt normal. Like freedom had no fences, and childhood came with scraped knees and no second thoughts. Number 2, sugar. In the 1960s, sugar wasn't just common, it was everywhere. Breakfast started with cereals like Sugar Smacks or Frosted Flakes, and lunch boxes held Twinkies, pudding cups, and candy bars. Kool-Aid was the drink of choice, loaded with spoonfuls of sugar we added ourselves. Nobody counted grams or checked labels. After-school snacks meant root beer floats, jelly sandwiches, or just a spoonful of peanut butter dipped in sugar. Dentists warned us, sure, but most parents didn't think twice. Sugar kept us happy, energized, and bouncing off the walls. There were no guidelines, no guilt, and no shortage of sweet treats within arm's reach. Looking back, it's amazing how much we consumed. But to a kid in the 60s, sugar wasn't a problem. It was just part of growing up. Number 3, toys. Toys in the 1960s didn't come with warning labels. They came with risks. Lawn darts had heavy metal tips and were thrown high into the air, often landing dangerously close to little feet. The swing wings spun around your head like a hula hoop, and more than a few kids got dizzy, or worse. Clackers were hard plastic balls you'd smack together until they shattered or flew across the room. There were chemistry sets, cap guns, and even toy ovens that could get hot enough to burn skin. Back then, safety testing wasn't much of a thing. But we didn't care. The more dangerous it was, the more fun it seemed. Cuts, bruises, even a trip to the ER. It was all part of the game. And for a lot of kids, those risky toys became the most memorable ones. Number 4, exploration. In the 1960s, kids didn't need permission to explore. They just went. We wandered through fields, empty lots, drainage ditches, and even into construction zones. Manholes and sewer pipes weren't off limits, just interesting. Some kids crawled deep into tunnels with nothing but a flashlight and curiosity. We climbed fences, snuck into barns, and played in abandoned buildings like they were castles. No phones, no check-ins, and usually no adults in sight. We followed our instincts, not safety rules. And sure, there were real dangers, getting lost, injured, or stuck in tight spaces. But most of the time, we made it home by dinner, dirty and smiling. Exploring the world on our own felt normal. It was freedom in its purest form, and we never once thought of it as risky. Number 5, flying. Inspired by cartoons and movie heroes, kids in the 1960s truly believed they could fly. We jumped off porch roofs with umbrellas, flapped cardboard wings from tree branches, and leaped off swings at full speed. Towels became capes, and the backyard was our runway. It didn't matter how many times we landed hard, we just kept trying. No one talked about concussions or broken bones. We were convinced that, with the right jump, maybe we'd catch a little air. Most of us ended up with scrapes, bruises, or a sprained ankle. But the thrill of trying made it all worth it. We weren't being reckless. We were just chasing a feeling, something between flight and freedom that only kids seem to understand. Number 6, swimming holes. Back in the 1960s, kids would swim just about anywhere. Creeks, ponds, rivers. It didn't matter if the water was clean, deep, or even moving fast. Most of the time, there were no lifeguards, no adults, and no life jackets in sight. We jumped off bridges, swung from ropes, and waded into muddy water without a second thought. Sometimes the bottom was slippery or full of sharp rocks, but we didn't care. Swimming was an adventure, and the best spots were usually the ones your parents never knew about. We'd stay out for hours, sunburned and waterlogged, only heading home when the sky turned orange. It was risky, sure, but back then, danger didn't mean much to a kid, especially when the water was cool and the summer felt endless. Number 7, secondhand smoke. In the 1960s, cigarette smoke was just part of the air. People smoked everywhere, at the dinner table, in restaurants, at the office, even on airplanes. At home, parents lit up in the living room while kids watched TV just a few feet away. In cars, the windows stayed rolled up while smoke drifted into the back seat. Ashtrays were on every table, and no one thought twice about lighting a cigarette indoors. Doctors smoked, teachers smoked. Even cartoons featured smoking. The idea of secondhand smoke being dangerous wasn't on anyone's radar. For kids, growing up surrounded by smoke felt completely normal. Looking back, the smell of tobacco clinging to your clothes might not seem pleasant, but for many it's a scent forever tied to a time and a childhood we can't quite forget. Number 8, the street. In the 1960s, the street wasn't just for cars, it was where kids played. We rode bikes down the middle of the road, skated on cracked pavement, and set up games of stickball right between parked cars. When a car came, someone would shout, "Car!" and we'd all scatter to the curb, then go right back to playing. There were no cones, no signs, no parents watching from lawn chairs. Driveways became racetracks and gutters turned into makeshift obstacle courses. Sometimes we'd chase balls right into traffic without thinking. Looking back, it's hard to believe how normal it all felt. We trusted drivers to see us and trusted ourselves to move fast. The street was ours, at least until the sun went down or the porch light flicked on. And somehow, most of us made it home in one piece. Number 9, no helmets. In the 1960s, helmets were for race car drivers, not for kids. We rode bikes, scooters, and skateboards without any head protection. We built ramps from plywood and bricks, then launched ourselves into the air just to see if we could stick the landing. Sometimes we did, other times we didn't. There were bumps, scrapes, and the occasional trip to the ER, but no one ever said, "Maybe you should wear a helmet." Falling was just part of the fun. We learned balance the hard way by wiping out. No one handed out elbow pads or talked about concussions, and yet every skid mark on the sidewalk felt like a badge of honor. It was risky, sure, but back then the ride was always worth it. Number 10, Chem Kits. In the 1960s, chemistry sets weren't toys. They were science in a box. They came with real chemicals, glass tubes, alcohol burners, and barely any instructions. Kids could mix powders, heat liquids, and sometimes create smoke, sparks, or even small explosions. Gloves and goggles weren't included, and adult supervision was more of a suggestion than a rule. Many learned about reactions by accident: burned fingers, stained countertops, or singed eyebrows. And while some kits were meant to teach, others felt like they were made for chaos. It was dangerous, no doubt, but it also made science feel exciting and unpredictable. For a kid in the 60s, lighting something on fire in the name of learning didn't seem strange. It just felt like curiosity at work, and nobody wanted to stop that. Number 11, sun exposure. Back in the 1960s, nobody really worried about the sun. Sunscreen wasn't common, and most kids spent entire days outside without a drop of it. We played in backyards, rode bikes for miles, and swam under a blazing sky, all with bare shoulders and no protection. Getting a tan was seen as healthy, even desirable. Ads encouraged it, and products promised a deep bronze glow, not UV protection. Sunburns were just part of summer, and peeling skin a badge of honor. Parents might apply lotion after the fact, but rarely before. We didn't think much about long-term damage or skin cancer. The sun was just there, hot, bright, and taken for granted. And for kids in the 60s, a sun-soaked afternoon was the best kind of freedom. Number 12, fireworks. In the 1960s, fireworks were everywhere, and most of them were in the hands of kids. We lit firecrackers with matches, tossed bottle rockets from our bikes, and held sparklers way too close to our faces. M80s, cherry bombs, Roman candles, they weren't hard to find, and no one asked for ID. Sometimes we'd have competitions to see who could make the biggest bang. Accidents happened. Burns, singed hair, and the occasional emergency room visit. But back then, it all felt like part of the fun. There were no safety goggles, no distance rules, and not much adult supervision. Just a pile of explosives and a summer night to waste. We knew it could be dangerous, but the noise, the light, and the thrill made it hard to resist. And every spark felt like freedom in the palm of your hand. Number 13, fire. In the 1960s, kids were often around open flames, and no one thought much of it. We roasted marshmallows over campfires, burned leaves in the backyard, and lit candles during storms. Some of us played with matches just to see what would catch. Stoves had open burners, and fireplaces didn't always have screens. Sometimes we'd toss things into the fire just to watch them sizzle or melt. There were plenty of warnings, but not a lot of supervision. Fire was fascinating, and we were curious. It was easy to get too close, or to forget how quickly things could spread. But in those days, being around fire wasn't considered reckless. It was just something you learned to respect after a few close calls, and maybe a blister or two along the way. Number 14, pesticide fog. One of the strangest memories from the 1960s was chasing the fog. Trucks would roll through neighborhoods spraying pesticides, usually DDT, to kill mosquitoes. And behind them trailed a thick white cloud that drifted across lawns and sidewalks. For kids, it was like magic. We ran through it barefoot, laughing, pretending it was smoke or mist from a movie scene. The smell was sharp, but no one told us not to breathe it in. Parents watched from porches, never thinking it might be harmful. There were no warnings, no fences, no second thoughts. It was just another part of summer. Looking back, it seems unthinkable. But at the time, we didn't know better. We just knew that wherever the fog went, we wanted to be right in the middle of it. Number 15, lead asbestos. In the 1960s, most homes and schools were filled with materials we now know to be toxic. Lead paint covered walls, windows, and even toys, peeling, chipping, and ending up in small hands and mouths. Asbestos was everywhere, in ceiling tiles, insulation, floor tiles, and even heat vents. Kids sat beneath it in classrooms and slept near it at night without a clue. There were no warning signs, no protective gear, and no reason to question it. It was just part of the building, part of the background. Doctors didn't raise alarms, and neither did teachers or parents. We lived among these dangers every day without ever knowing. It didn't smell, it didn't sting, and it didn't burn. But looking back, it may have been one of the most dangerous things of all. Growing up in the 1960s meant facing a lot of risks, but most of us didn't know it at the time. We were too busy living. If these memories brought back a smile or a wince, let us know in the comments. And if you remember a danger we missed, we'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more looks back at the world we grew up in.